Welcome, I am Terry Tropin, and today I'll be discussing the terms unspecified and specified in ICD-10-CM. These terms are confusing to coding students and sometimes to working students as well, working coders as well. First, let me start with information about who I am. I have a master's in Healthcare Administration Informatics from the University of Maryland Global Campus and have RHIA and CCSP certifications. I'm also an AHIMA-approved ICD-10 trainer. I taught health information technology at Montgomery College for over 20 years. I'm now retired. I've also written books on coding. So here are my books: Evaluation and Management, Coding Made Easy, ICD-10-CM Coding Made Easy, and ICD-10 PCS Coding Made Easy. So here are my books. Now, the Evaluation and Management Coding Made Easy book includes the March 2023 updates, including the 2023 updates from January, and then again, the new ones from March. These books are available on Amazon and updated every year. I've also just started a podcast station. The links to the books and the podcast are listed in the introduction to this video. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the tabular conventions in the ICD-10-CM official guidelines for coding and reporting. Talk about the definition of NEC, not elsewhere classified, and NOS, not otherwise classified. Give examples of using each, and then finally a comparison of them. Most but not all of the NEC and NOS codes end in a digit either 8 or 9. So let's start with NOS, not otherwise specified, also listed as unspecified in some cases. You can see these abbreviations mostly in the alphabetic index. In the tabular list of codes, you mostly see the words unspecified or other, mostly unspecified. So what does NOS mean? It's the equivalent of unspecified. This means the diagnostic statement in the medical record doesn't contain enough information to assign the condition to a more specific code. You can't choose between several different codes because you just don't have enough information. So for example, in the tabular list, you'll see low back pain includes lumbago NOS, that's M54.5. In the alphabetic index, you can see hypoplasia bone NOS, which is Q79.9. So it'll say NOS or unspecified. Okay, so here are some an example of NOS. Look up gastroenteritis in the alphabetic index. This entry lists a number of specific code conditions, including allergic, epidemic, toxic, viral. There's also some due to codes, what's causing the gastroenteritis, cryptosporidium is AO7.2, caused by drug, caused by radiation. It can be epidemic, toxic, or viral. So what do you do if the documentation only says gastroenteritis? Well, there's not enough information to choose a more specific code. Is it allergic? Is it due to radiation? Is it due to drugs? We don't know. Therefore, you're going to use the default code, which is this one. Why isn't that working? This one. That's the default code, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. You might also notice that the entry for gastroenteritis states, see also enteritis. But you look up that term in the alphabetic index, it also refers you to K52.9, so that's not going to help you. So that's in the index. Look in the tabular list of codes, find K52.9. This code is entitled Non-Infectious Gastroenteritis and Colitis Unspecified. If you look under that list of codes, however, you'll see gastroenteritis NOS listed as an inclusion term. So this confirms to you, yes, this is the correct code. So in the previous slide, I mentioned the default code. The default code is the one listed to the main entry in the alphabetic index. So here you have sunburn L55.9. This is the default code since it's listed next to sunburn. If you don't have information about what caused the sunburn, the due to, or whether it's first degree, second degree, or third degree, all you can do is use the default code, which is L55.9. As an aside, the default code will not always end in digit 8 or 9. For example, in this one, the default code for diplegia is G83.0. So usually it ends in 8 or 9, but not always. Now let me talk again briefly about the this term in parentheses. Upper limbs, it could state that it's still the default. If upper limbs is documented in the documentation medical record, you can use this code. If it's not listed, you can still use this code. So it is assumed to be upper limbs unless specified otherwise. In that case, it would be this one. Okay, let's move on to NEC, not elsewhere classified. Now, this is kind of the opposite of NOS. This indicates the documentation is very specific, but there's no separate specific code for the condition in your ICD-10 book. Here are some examples. In the tabular list, you'll find biomechanical lesions, NEC, that's M99. In the alphabetic index, you'll see exhaustion, exhaustive, parentheses, physical, NEC. So those are some examples. So here's another example. Note 808.39, other viral enteritis. Note that echovirus enteritis is an inclusion term in the tabular list under A08.39, but there's no specific code, separate code for A08.39. So if you look up A08.39, you see that this lumps together types of enteritis such as echovirus, torovirus, Coxsackie. All of those are lumped together and coded with this one code A08.39. So let's look at some more examples of NEC or NOS. So a good example of this is an alphabetic index for pneumonia. The default code is J18.9. So if all you have is pneumonia or any of these parenthetical phrases, that's all you have, you use J18.9. Pneumonia, organism is unknown, specific bacteria or virus is not documented in the medical record. So if you look under the index entry for pneumonia, there's a long list of specific types. You got bacteria, you've got Coxsackie virus, you've got Klebsiella, you've got Escherichia, you've got all kinds of different, very specific types. If you have documentation of any of those, you're not going to use the J18.9, you're going to use the most specific code possible. That's what you want to do. So if you look up bacterial pneumonia, you have listed there the same J15.9 and then a specified J15.8. So if the cause of pneumonia is not specified, it could be any of those others that we mentioned. It could be staph. We don't know. Since you do not have enough information to select a single code from this list, use the unspecified code, J15.9. This is the NOS code. On the other hand, the documentation may state pneumonia due to Peptostreptococcus. Peptostreptococcus is listed in the alphabetic index with code J15.8. But if you look J15.8 in the tabular list, it's entitled pneumonia due to other specified bacteria. The Peptostreptococcus is not even listed, even as an inclusion note under the code. However, since the index sent you there, you know this is the correct code to use. This is the NEC code, so other stuff that doesn't have a specific code is sent to J15.8. So let's look at another example. This is prostatitis. Default code N41.9. And you have all these different types of prostatitis. If one of these is listed in the documentation, you can use that code. If it says chronic or fibrosis or hypertrophic, you use that code. But what if the documentation says only prostatitis? So in that case, you would use that default code listed up here, because that's all the information you have. You don't have enough information to choose between all the other types, chronic, subacute, tuberculous, whatever. You don't have enough information to use that. So you have to go to the N41.9. Now notice that the subterms diverticular and cavitary are listed in the alphabetic index, and both refer you to the same code, N41.8, right there and right there. If you go to the tabular list, you'll see that N41.8 is entitled Other Inflammatory Diseases of the Prostate. There's no inclusion term or anything in the tabular list for diverticular and cavitary. These conditions are lumped together into the other specified or NEC codes. There is specific documentation of the condition, but not a specific separate code for them. So no separate codes for these very specific conditions. So let's look at a summary of these. NOS is not otherwise specified. Unspecified documentation is not specific enough to choose between two or more codes. NEC, on the other hand, not elsewhere specified, is the documentation is too specific. The documentation is very specific, but there's no specific code for this condition. Okay, this completes the video. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. For more information, see the link to complete. For more information, send me a note if you have a question. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe by clicking on the picture in the lower right-hand corner. And again, here are the books I have written on coding up here. And there's the link to them. If you go to Amazon books and type in TROPIN, my last name, these also come up. This is my podcast. Here's how to contact me. Here's if you want a copy of the slides. And remember that the books are updated every year. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.